Yes, I'm recording. Okay, today is November 30th, 2018. This conference has Robert Briggs from SDSU and Aaron Curtis from BYU Hawaii, Gov Allen from Brigham Young University in Provo.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
And so our goal here today is to take these two professors through the process of creating query assessments that will automatically grade.
Yes.
In MyEducator. So right now I'm logged in to Bob's master's course. Shall we work there, or is there a better place for us to work?
Let's see. I think I have a sandbox course. Let's see what it is.
We can look at that. I can find that better than you folks can probably. Oh no, you might be able to find it pretty easily, Bob. So, but if I come here, I should be able to see. Oh, I've got to be at the master course. I can see all the children of this course. Let's see. Course name title contains. What might that course be called?
It would be called Enterprise Data Management, or it might be 686. 686 would be the search term.
So we've got 3 courses with that in the title.
Let's work with the 2016 course, since I don't have any live people in that one.
Very good.
All right. This can be my sandbox course.
I will come to Manage Assessments.
All right.
And then here we'll go ahead and make an assessment. Why don't we go ahead and make a new group?
Okay, that sounds good.
Assessments, new group. We call this Custom SQL Assignments.
All right.
Let's make it red.
Why not? Red looks good.
It'll probably be at the very bottom.
Most likely. Yes, and everything is off.
Well, this is chapter quizzes, so
okay.
We're looking at.
Oh, there we go. Got it.
Aaron, how is the delay for you? Are we pretty quick, or is there a substantial lag?
No, this is fine.
Oh, wonderful. All right, so we'll make a new assessment. Why don't we just call it queries 1?
Okay.
Custom assignment, don't worry about a due date. Okay, so it's brought us here into the questions.
Okay.
Let's probably begin looking over here at the setup. So kind of the first thing that we want to do is think about the database that we're going to be executing.
Okay.
So there's lots of things you can do to set up. When does the student see the feedback? And so
yeah.
I'm assuming you've played with those. If not, we can spend some
have.
time with those later. How the score happens and so forth.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
But now we have to decide, where do we want this to execute? And
right.
So,
and for me, it's got to be in the SQL server.
SQL Server. And Aaron, are you using SQL Server too?
I am.
Okay, so that's nice. Okay, so now we've got databases here. And actually, I'm wondering, Aaron, no doubt you'll want to create some against that database that you just set up on Amazon.
Yeah, but
I would like to be able to query on a database of my own creation as well.
So we may need to get a little help from MyEducator here, because these are the only 2 choices here.
Is there a way for me to install my database on your SQL server?
Yeah, we can help you out with that.
That'd be great.
So, but Aaron, in terms of getting you connected up to that Amazon RDS server, we may need a little help from them. But let's go ahead and go down this.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to look and see. What we've been doing so far in just playing with this is we've given the students some tables and just had them populated in their student space, and then we can run the test against their student credentials.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we'll explore the remote database later on.
All right. So we picked the database server, and then we want the database that's on that server. So why don't we go ahead and use Redcat 2 for this example.
All right. Is there a schema available?
One would think, and the answer is yeah, we have some images, but they're not especially like a place that I can just point you to them.
All right. Do I have permissions that would let me get into information schema to look at how the various tables and columns are configured?
Sure. Let's go ahead and do that. But let me save the changes here.
Okay.
So we're
I
set up
will also point out the ER diagram for Red Cat 2 is at the beginning of the chapter 6. Is it? No, that's Lorenzo. But I think the assessments have the scheme at the beginning of them, don't they?
That's right, yeah. So let's just go ahead and take a look at an existing assessment. So let me go back to assessments in a new tab. And let's just look at the chapter 6 assessments, which are the ones that use Red Cat 2.
All right.
So let's
Great assessments, by the way. I use them regularly.
Oh, good. Create tables. We want something that's doing joins, sub-queries on the full schema. Well, this should be okay. All I'm really doing here is I'm looking for that image. Let's come to setup. Yeah, so here, this is the schema here for this one. So that's the whole Red Cat schema. So if I hit preview up here, they should be able to kind of see how that looks. So there's that diagram.
Got it.
And I guess what we could do is save the image as. I'll just save it locally. It's a great name. It's kind of on the list of things that I need to get to, is make it so that when you go to these different databases in the advanced query editor, that there's at least a link to the schema so that you can just pull it up there. That's just not there yet. Okay, so now we'll come back to the one that we're building, and the place I like to put the schema is right here in the assessment setup, not the question setup. I like to say, listen, I'm going to use all of the queries that we'll write here to have one schema that's common for this assignment. You could have different schemas for each question and put the schema at the question level, but I'm going to go ahead and put it here. So we'll use the following schema. For your queries.
Looks like you use the same keyboard I do.
Every once in a while, I think maybe I should really learn how to type.
Now, why start now?
Okay. I think the problem is I've got too many files here. It doesn't want to sort.
What are you doing now, Gov?
Here, what I'm doing here is I'm just inserting a file
into
the heading of the assessment, just so that.
Okay, the heading of this new assessment.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me see if I can find that file.
I didn't see the moves you made to insert the graphic there.
PNG, that's the reason. Okay, so I'll take you through that again real quick.
Okay.
So right here, I'm putting in the text that will show at the top.
Right.
And then this little icon here lets me bring in an image.
Okay.
And so.
All right, that's just a standard HTML editor kind of thing.
Right, select a file, then it becomes available here, and then you can insert it. So I guess now that I've inserted that into the gallery of this course,
yes,
I think that will just be available.
Oh, nice.
In this course.
Okay. So the image gallery is course-wide.
I think so. All right, so I'll save this. And then we'll come back to the questions. Oops, hold on a second. This is required. Randomized order, no. I don't know what else might be required that I don't have set. We're still at SQL Server, Red Cat. Okay, that looks good. All right, so let's figure out a query that we'd like to execute. And unfortunately, the query creation environment doesn't have a way for you to execute the queries. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the advanced query editor.
Okay, and how are you going to do that?
I'm going to come to where it says student menu.
Oh, I see. Yes, you're going to just go in as a student, so you have the editor open.
Right.
Got it.
And I may go ahead and split the screen. Tell me if this is still workable for how you guys are seeing it.
Yeah, I see both of those just fine.
Yeah, that works fine.
Okay. So here is, let's think of a query that we'd like to have the students write. So maybe customers from a particular state that have purchased a particular product. So let's select star from customer. Let's just get that far, make sure this works. I'll tell that we're at SQL Server using second Red Cat database. Okay, so that's working good.
So this query editor is apart from any problem right now. Is that right? Students can just get in here and poke around.
Right. Yeah. So this is just the place where your students can come and execute a free-form query that's not tied to any instructional content.
Right.
By the way,
Yes.
when you come into here as an instructor,
Yes.
this is checked by default, which means that whatever you're doing here is available for your students to see.
Okay. So what does that mean? Anytime I write a query, they can see it?
Yeah, it's actually a tool that we built for working in class. Let me show you.
So if I were to type if they were in this feature and I type something in, is it shared? They would see my text coming up on their screens?
No, not quite, but I'll show you how it works.
Okay.
So the students have the ability to look at their query history.
Oh yeah.
And let's see, it must be too big. There we go. So right now, this is showing all queries that are executed by me. And create table. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I'm looking at the wrong person. Anyway, you can, as an instructor, you can look at your query history or any of your students' query histories and just see what's
Oh, very nice. All right.
your
So when
students.
I put something in here, they can see my query history
That's
for
right.
everything I do here.
That's right. So if you ever execute a query that you think, oh no, that's the test that I'm writing, and I didn't mean it to be visible, you can come and uncheck it here,
Got it.
so it won't be visible. But I'm not quite sure why the one that I just executed isn't showing up. But the point is, now your students, when they come to this query, they can just click it and it will open that in the advanced query editor.
Got it.
So as soon as you execute that query, it should be available to your students. And the nice thing about that is that when you're working in class, you might making a complex query, you can say to them, listen, just focus on what I'm saying while we're doing this. You'll have access to it and you can execute it just as soon as I do, but don't spend all of your cognitive effort trying to follow the bouncing ball. Sit back and understand what we're talking about here, and then you can bring it up and fiddle with it here just as soon as I execute it.
Right.
Okay, so I'm coming back to the query that I'm working on. Student menu.
How did you make that query panel bigger?
This panel right here.
Yeah.
So
A moment ago it was smaller. Now it's bigger.
yeah, so let me explain that here in just
Okay.
as well. Unfortunately, it kind of resets when you come back in. I'm going to try to go back and see if it still has it. So the idea here is that when you execute this query, we want to collapse the query window out of the way
Right.
so that it's not taking up much space on your screen. And when you scroll, that query window will kind of stick at the top as the
Okay. Oh, I see.
so it shrinks down to as many lines as you have in the query.
Oh, I see. That's wonderful.
So if you want it to stay bigger, just put some blank lines at the end.
Roger that.
Okay. So we're going to do customers that have purchased a product who live in a particular state. So
Okay.
from customer, join sale S. And I'm not sure if you guys like to go wide or tall with your queries.
It varies, but mostly I go tall.
Customer ID equals s.customer ID. Too long. So it looks like I'm, oh yeah, I did a, I did a Cartesian join by joining on the same column. The database system says we're not going to let you do a Cartesian join.
Yes, that would be pretty deep.
Okay. So we've got to sale. We got to go to sale item. Well, maybe we don't want to go so complex on the first one that we do. So let's do customers that have purchased in a certain date range. Okay.
Okay.
Let's start from customer. What do we have for dates here? Let's look at our sale. So let's just say in December of 2013.
Okay.
Where sale date between I'm just going to go in the same format. 1 and 31.
All right.
Okay. Those three, delightful. And let's say what we want to show is we want to show the customer's name and the sale date. Oh, they're all on the 31st? Let's try the 14th. Like let's do 2014. Just a few more sales in 2014. I think our only sales on 2013 are on the very last day of the year for some reason. Okay, so C dot first name, C dot last name, and all right. So that's the query that we're trying to have the students write.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm now back here. Let me go a little bit bigger. There we go. So here's the question, and I'm adding a new question. So here'll be the text of the question. Show customers who have orders, let's see, I guess sales, in December 2014. We have found that when you're writing this query, it's good to give a general statement for the query and then to specify in a separate statement exactly which columns you're after.
I have come to that same conclusion. That's terrific. I noticed that you had updated the questions that way in this year's version. Clarified things quite a bit.
Okay. Answers. Oh, make sure it doesn't get deleted. So right now, this is just a general question tool for all of MyEducator.
Okay.
So the default here is for multiple choice questions. So I'm going to make this an SQL question.
Okay. I see.
Okay, so we'll establish the total points that we want for this question. And now we'll say it's time to add a new rule. So these are the different kinds of rules that we can do. So let's do this first one here, SQL contains term.
Okay.
So SQL contains term, I'm saying you cannot get this answer right if you don't refer to the customer table.
Right.
So I'm going to say you've got to have the customer table involved. It's not case sensitive. Truth is, I don't think this case sensitivity ever is case sensitive, but I'm going to go ahead and change that to no.
Yeah.
Point deduction is 1 point. And if we don't put feedback in here, it will generate default feedback. So this is, SQL contains term is actually parsing their SQL and it's looking for something about the SQL.
And what would its generic feedback say? Just don't find the word customer?
expecting to find the term customer in the query and couldn't find it, or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
But
Okay.
if you want to give them some different feedback,
Yeah.
you can put that here as well.
Query doesn't reference customer table, something like that.
Yeah, you can do that. Let's go ahead and do one for the sale table, and we'll put the custom feedback on that one.
All right.
So this has to be sale query does not reference the sale table. Okay, and so the truth is I like to use this sparingly.
Okay.
If there's something that I think, I really want to be in there, and because if they get the thing right, it's gonna have to be in there anyway, unless they've done something really strange. Now, if I'm testing to see if they can do this with between, so if the question is to use between syntax,
yes,
and I definitely want to put that in because they could come up with the right query that doesn't use that syntax.
Yeah.
And I won't really have a way to test that unless I'm looking at the query. Okay, number of records.
I'm not quite sure what you were saying about syntax there. Would you still use the term rule? The SQL contains term to check for between in there.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and put that one in as well. So
I just wanted to be sure I was still on the same page with you.
Between question requires you to use between in the query and let's see, period. That keyword is not in the query.
Got it.
Okay. In the between keyword,
That's the information system's way of spelling keyword.
I guess, is it normally 2 words?
No, I was saying when you had an I in there. That's totally the way the IS pros do it. I do it that way. Sometimes we have to put a Y in for the rest of the world.
So
it's hard to do ironic humor when you're at a distance, I'm discovering.
There you go. As it turns out, this really is just parsing the query. So if the student, realizes it's looking for the keyword and did it with a different approach here, they could throw between in a comment.
Yes.
They would get the points.
Find it. Yeah, got it.
Okay, let's look at a different kind of rule.
Okay.
So now everything else here is going to deal with looking at the result set.
Yes.
And so number of records. So how many records are we expecting to have here? Let me go ahead and just change this so that it shows the record numbers.
Display rows, yes. There we go. Now, where did you just do that? Oh, the little wrench.
Oh. And I'm kind of troubled that it reset my query when I did that.
Blast.
It's not supposed
to. Is it in your history?
It should be. So let's query. Oh, I need to go to query history. Student menu,
query history, there you go.
And that's me, but there's 2 of me. And I'm not logged in as you, I'm logged in as me. So there might be something wonky with the query history because that's not showing my query history. Where else could I get to it?
Huh.
Let's see if, Bob, why don't you look and see if you can access that?
All right. I will do that. Give me a moment. I'm going to pull up my browser. I'm going to MyEducator. All right. Log in. Go into student menu. Query history. No, I'm seeing stuff that I did. Last time I was in, looks like was 11.7.
And see if you can change the executed by to be by me instead of by you.
All right. EFG. I don't see GovAllen as a choice here.
Let's make sure we're on the same course. Course 670.
Oh, good point. Good point. I am not on the same course. So going to the 2016 course database. Are you in database winter 2016?
I am in.
No, you're in database fall 16.
Yes.
All right. I'm in. Going to the student menu. Query history. GovAllen. There you are. I see create table, bus VIN, Vericare 30. So I'm seeing only your old one.
Same thing I was seeing. I'm just gonna rewrite the query here in Notepad.
Right. All right.
Then that way we won't have this problem again.
Right. There you go.
(2014-12-1). Okay. And we're truncated at 100 records. I usually don't like to bring back hundreds and hundreds of records, so.
How many records are in the database?
Right now it's truncating at 100 records. We can change that, but let me just move this down to the 15th and see what that brings us. Still more than 100. We bump this up. Show 1,000 records.
Where did you just do that?
So
okay, good.
Tool here, and that time it didn't remove my query. That's good. It's not supposed to. But here's 142. That's a reasonable set for a student to work with. So I'm just going to change the query between December 1st and December 15th. We have sales in December. We have sales from December 1st to Okay, so now I know this query, the correct query should produce 142 records.
Right.
So expected number of records, 42.
Okay.
And I'll leave the default feedback for that one.
All right.
We'll add new rule. Equal contains term, number of fields. Yeah, I think I'll specify the fields for this one. This one, because we told them specifically which columns to bring in.
Yeah.
So we've got to have 3 columns, and we'll add new rule. This is one of the most powerful ones. So this is the number of records with a where clause.
Now what does that mean? Number of records with a where clause.
So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to put, to kind of explore this query, I'm going to make it a subquery. So select star from this query. Okay, so that should be the same 142 records.
Right.
Now I'm going to throw a subsequent where clause on this.
Okay.
Where last name equals order.
Okay.
And it'll need to be a string literal. Only one.
Okay.
I'd like to find where there's a couple there. So order by last name. We have any doubles. Yeah, Cortez.
There you go.
So where Cortez equals last name. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this where clause, not including the where. Actually, it's probably a little backwards from the way we normally teach it. And this will end up being displayed to the student. So I'm going to put it in a more canonical format. And here's the where clause now. And I'm expecting to see 2 records.
Okay, 2 records.
That criteria.
Okay, so it will check to see if last name equals Cortez is in the where clause, and then it will check to see.
No.
Oh.
What it does.
Oh, it's telling you which where clause it wants you to test.
No, what it will do is, so the where clause that we're expecting the student to give is this one on the inner query.
Right.
But now to kind of, and one of the main points for this kind of rule is to help the student clue into how their query is deficient.
Okay.
So in the full 142 records that come back, there should be 2 records where the last name is Cortez.
Right.
And so this rule is going to evaluate, it's going to count how many records meet that criteria.
Okay.
And so this will give them feedback that says, there should be 2 records where last name equals Cortez in the set, and yours has more, or yours has less.
Okay.
And that will just give them something more than just, sorry, you don't have the right number of records. Something to focus in a little bit more on while they're trying to figure out what's wrong.
Okay. Now, how does the records with where clause distinguish between the where clause in the subquery and the where clause in the outer query?
Yeah, good question. It doesn't look at the where clause at all. It's the evaluation of the results set.
It just looks at the number of records that came back.
So what happens is the number of records with a where clause applies a subsequent filter to the result set that the student's query brings back. And so it says, all right, let's take what the student query gave me and let's add this filter to it.
Oh, I see.
And then count the number of records. And if there's 2, that's what we're expecting.
All right, yeah.
If there's not,
now, what if theirs would return 3 with last name Cortez? What message could it give them to let them know there's a problem?
Yeah, it would come back and say that there should be 2 records where the last name equals Cortez. Your query produces more. It'll give them some indication as to.
Okay, so you're actually wrapping their query in a subquery that would then help them zero in on where their problems are.
Conceptually, yes. We're not really doing it with a subquery. And the reason we don't do it with a subquery is because if they have given us 2 different column names that are the same, that's legal to run that query, but it can't be a subquery if there's conflicts in column names or a column without a name or something like that. So so you have an algorithm behind the scenes. Right, and it's actually Microsoft's algorithm. They have a way to say just apply a subsequent filter to this record set, and it will just reduce it further.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's the number of records with a where clause. And the truth is, what I like to do is put in a few of these with small point deductions and put the number of records itself as a pretty large deduction. So because the truth is, if they're on a query like this, if they're getting the number of records correct, chances are that query is right. And so a subsequent number of records with a where clause should really be thought of as, let's give the students some guidance as to know why their query is deficient.
All right.
So value count in result. So number of records in the where clause is specific enough to allow us to do a subsequent filter. And if we know the column names that we're working with, I always prefer that one. But value count in result is basically saying, I don't care what the field name is. I just want to look across the whole result set and see how many times do I see this particular value.
Oh, how many times a particular value shows up in the results set.
Right. And the reason that that's handy is if you have your students write a query where you don't really care what the, some kind of calculated column, and you don't care what they call that new column.
Okay.
You can just say, we're looking for a particular value here. So I'm not quite sure how it would work with date, but let's look for Reese. And it looks like Reese is going to appear here twice, unless it also appears as a first name. Yeah, so it only shows twice here. So we'll do that one here just so we can see this record work.
Okay.
The value we're looking for is Reese. Point deduction is 1. And so this one will feel very similar to the last one. But the key here is that I don't care which column this appears in.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So I don't.
Okay.
I don't have to know the column name to be able to do this kind of a.
Got it.
Field name exists. Okay. So field name exists says we're actually checking to make sure that they've given us the last name field name.
Okay.
And again, there'll be default feedback generated for this.
Okay, this says field name exists. Okay, that just says that column is in their table.
That's right.
Now, because they might select it out.
Right, yeah, because there's...
So it's a test if the temporary table has that field name.
Well, their answer. So does that column exist in there? Does a column by that name exist in the answer they provide?
Right. Okay. Okay.
If alias this, will it check for the alias?
It will. Yeah, that's all it will check for. So it looks at the result set and says, what are the column names? What are the columns? Yeah, in fact, why don't we go ahead and do that? Let's add on to our query here. Instead of last name, let's look for date of sale. And with the default feedback, let's see. Go ahead and save these. We'll come back and put some more in.
All right.
But, oh no, I didn't need to save it, I just need to scroll up. So what's the first name, last name, and the date of sale? Rename, let's see. Name the, okay. Your query should produce 3 columns named as follows. First name, last name, date of sale. I'm not sure the best way to tell to rename that column, but
yeah.
Now we've told them that's what it has to be named, and we're specifically looking for date of sale to be a column name in the result.
Got it.
Sorted by.
Ah, nice.
Okay, so let's go ahead and sort by first name and then by last name.
Okay.
So add that to the query. Sort the records by last name. Let's do last name and first name. And by first name.
In alphabetical order.
And alphabetical order.
So does it check for ascending and descending?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So sort by field names. Actually, I'm trying to think of how we would actually check if it's descending order. I'm not sure. We might have to play with that one. So this should be field names. Oh, last name. Yeah, actually, I think we can, let's play with it, but I think we could put descending in here.
Okay, let's find out.
I don't remember, but let's work it in the way that I think it will work. I'm pretty sure it'll work first, and then we'll play with it. All field names. So all field names. All field names. I don't remember what all field names does. I may have to go look at the source code for that. Oh, wait, no, here we go. Yeah, all field names. And so this just lets me say it's got to have, instead of doing one field name at a time as a rule, yeah, you could say this is the list of field names that it has to be in there. So
these are field names that have to be there. Oh, all field names, right? Now your third one is sale date. It doesn't have the alias. It has the field name.
This would have to be this way.
Right. Okay. So all the fields, when we're talking about the fields, we're not, oh, we are talking about the alias then. We're talking about the field names in the temporary table.
Now, you've said temporary table a couple of times, and I don't know what you mean by that.
Oh, sorry. That's the language that I learned SQL on. The table that's returned by a query, I learned that as a temporary table.
Oh, okay.
What do you call it?
Result set.
Oh, result set. Okay, good to know.
Temporary table is a fine name for it as well. So this is just, instead of having to write a separate rule for each name, if you want to make sure they're all there, you can just do it in one fell swoop with all field names. Sorted by fields, all field names, field order. So if you're really picky about the field order, you can say, and they've got to be in this order.
Wow, field order, nice.
Do you have to use both of those at the same time, or will field order also enforce field names?
I think field order subsumes all field names. So to get field order full credit, you would have to have them all here.
All the required fields.
Right. So
Okay.
I don't think you would ever put both of these rules in the same query.
Okay.
If you're saying field order,
yeah,
it's going to require to get this one right, you've got to have all the fields there and they have to be in the right order.
Got it. Okay. So field order is there and in order.
Right. And the truth is, the definition of a relation, neither the order of the rows is not critical, or the order of the columns. So I almost never require a particular field order as a result of a query because they're identical relations regardless of the order of the columns.
Yep, that's the logic of relation.
But I could totally imagine them needing to get the columns right, for some manager who says, hey, I want them in this order. Great, that's what you have to do. Okay, the feedback here, this is the general feedback tool for all MyEducator questions.
Okay.
Because we are generating individual feedback here, this feedback is never shown to the student.
Oh.
Anything down here just never gets displayed to the student because all the feedback comes through the query engine, the
okay.
logic. So
what is this field for then? Well,
it's normally what you would give feedback to students on for other questions. It's just kind of
got it.
Over here. So
that's an artifact of this being a general editor.
Right.
Okay.
But what I do is I then drop the solution query in here.
Okay.
Just so that when I'm looking at this query, I've got when I'm looking at this question, I can say, okay, here's what it's supposed to be.
That's great.
Order by last.
Yeah.
And I guess I should make sure. And that is kind of a weird thing that happens. I'm not even sure what those characters are. I think it executes okay with those in there.
That dot?
Yeah.
Huh.
I just copied that back out of this HTML editor or this, whatever editor this is. And those came with it. Oh, whoops, this should be sale date as. Okay. Guess we don't have any competencies listed or learning objectives. This
What is a competency?
Again, for other books, they've got learning objectives formally defined in the structure of the book, so you could pick these.
All right.
You could say this is an easy query, and that's a short time to do it.
Yeah.
And we could also then tie this back to some place in the book.
Ah, very nice. Okay.
So this, let's see, we do joins. This kind of join we hit in chapter 2. Entering and changing data in, extracting data from multiple tables. So that's, seems like I should be able to select that, but maybe not. Well, maybe I have to click on the link here.
Can you tie it to a particular section or just to a particular chapter?
Oh, you can tie it down to any of the levels that they give these
Good.
codes for.
Good. Nice. And that just does that give them a pointer back to that section of the book if they want to brush up?
The results will give them a link back to this location.
Okay.
But I'm not quite seeing how to do this SW8ZQ.
All right.
That's awesome. SW8ZQ. I know that's what has to be there, but it's eluding me how this tool is letting me do it.
It doesn't let me just click there and then
I think that clicking one of these would do it, but
like clicking isn't doing it.
there's a save here as well. So anyway, another usability thing.
But you can copy paste the or at least manually type in the section number.
Yeah.
All right.
Save this. Okay, so now when you're looking at that question, you kind of get the summary here.
Yeah.
But not all the details. To get the details, you have to click anywhere in this, and that'll take you back to edit that question.
Oh, just click the just click the click the question, and it'll open up.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we should be able to preview this. That'll open in a new window. So using the between keyword, that's great. I'll copy my query in here. This should give me full credit. Now, submission score 5 out of 10.
No, that's it.
Feedback. So let's go back and set the feedback settings so that we can see the results. So back in setup, feedback. After submission assessment, show the number of points, show the correct answer. That there is no way to show the correct answer for these kinds of questions. Show question default. Show link to the text. When to display. Let's wait until the due date is passed. So let's do after the entire submission. And I'll preview that again. Okay, so this is saying I've got some problem with the rule on how many rows. Query should be sorted by the following columns: last name, first name. Order by last name, first name. So,
you have an order by last name, first name in there.
Yeah, so it looks like there may be a problem with this rule. I'll have to look into that. But here's the link that takes us back to that portion of the textbook where it talks about this stuff.
Yeah, that's working.
Let's check the number of rows. So I'm going to go back to the questions.
I think you may have put 42 rows instead of 142 rows in your criteria.
Ah, there you go.
Oh, very good. So let's save that. And preview again. Now, unless we do something to tell it to regrade this, this will not regrade.
Okay.
So I'm just going to say try again. And I'll copy the same query in. Submit. Submit now, yes. Okay, so the sorting still isn't quite right. And it says the query results should be sorted by the following columns: last name, first name. And it's not, but I think it is.
Kind of looks like it is. It does say order by last name, comma, first name.
Yeah. So it looks like there's some problem with that rule. I'm not sure what it is. I'll probably have to spend some time tracking that down, which I won't do while we're here on the line.
Roger that.
So let's try.
You might try just sorting by one column and seeing if that works.
That's a good idea. Let's give that a shot. So all field names, field order, field name exists. Oh, field order, no. Here, sorted by fields. Let's just put by last name.
Oh, it's last aim. There it is. It says last aim instead of last name. There you go.
Okay, so let's try then the full thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like this one should be working, because otherwise I'm sure I would have heard about it from some complaining students.
Yeah.
Not that they're complaining students, but students who are justly complaining.
There you go.
Query is being supported incorrectly.
All right. Here we go. I see there is some debugging to be done when one sets up a question.
Yes. There we go. Full credit.
All right.
Let's try the descending thing, shall we?
Yeah. Now, what if a student never gets the thing to run? They get some code in there, and I suppose you would you'd get partial credit for the things that the rules found, huh?
So we'll talk about that here, but let's try this one. Let's put first name in descending order.
All right. Good.
And preview it. Try again. Uh-oh, what did I do? All right, so I'm going to execute it this way. And this should tell me that it's not in the right order. So I lost 1 point for that. Let me try it again and put it in the right order. Oops.
So it basically looks for the contents of the order by statement.
I think that may be what it's doing. We tried initially to look at the result set to check for sorting, and it got complex in ways that was kind of unexpected for it to be complex to do.
Right.
And so, I think so. What we end up doing is like taking this clause, pushing it to all uppercase, taking out all the spaces, and just seeing if it matches. That's maybe a problem. Yes, I think it's legal to actually use the full word descending.
Yes. Good.
So I'm not sure what this is going to do with it. Oh, didn't like my query at all. So this answers an earlier question. What happens if the query can't execute?
Right. Okay.
And so you will not get points taken off for so things you're looking for in parsing the query.
Yeah.
So there should be no error here about it referring to the customer table, because it passed those checks. We had enough other points deducted to be able to move all the way down to 0.
Okay.
The points that you deduct do not have to sum up to the number of points that are in the question.
Oh, I see. So you can set that number to whatever you want it to be, and so they might be any number of things that would take them down to 0, even though they got parts of it right.
Right, and they could go below. They can't go below 0. It'll cap out at 0.
Right. And do you generally find that useful to do it that way, or do you find it more useful to have the deductions add up to the total score?
Well, we wrote it this way specifically because we thought there may be, you know, kind of picky little things that you want to take points off if they miss.
Yeah.
So the answer is I don't know.
Okay.
The answer is I don't know.
All right. You don't have a general practice yourself?
No,
Okay.
we do not make them sum up, but
Right.
you certainly could.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's see if we can execute this. It may not like the full word descending. No, I guess it doesn't like it. Did I spell it right?
Yeah, it may not be standard for SQL Server.
Okay.
All right.
That's the process of doing queries where you're just reading the data.
Uh-huh.
If you're going to have them creating data, it's a little bit different.
Okay.
Do we want to talk about that today?
I'm going to have to push that to another one because I have another commitment I got to go to. This has been fantastic. If I may, I'll send you an email. We can, or maybe we could just while I'm here, we could find another time on our calendar, because I do want to find out about how I could have them creating tables and creating data, doing update queries and so on.
Okay. Yeah, it's not terribly different from this, but it's a little bit of a mind shift because they've got to have a space where the table can actually be created during the grading process.
Mm.
So that's a little more.
More involved.
Yeah, a little more involved.
Okay, and at some point I would also like to talk to you about views and indexes. I don't know if you support those kinds of.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this has been a terrific lesson for me. And is it okay if we set up another time?
Yeah, I think so. Let's go ahead and kind of quit the recording here, unless you have any questions, Aaron.
No, I may have one or two in an email, but I've got to go run to get ready for class. So I'm going to bow out here. Thank you. This has been helpful. And I'll just follow up offline with you.
All right. That sounds great. Well, I guess that's the end of the recording.